Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Let's go ahead and round the folks back up. Come back in. So here's on our agenda today. Talk about the Honeynet project, about the multidisciplinary approach. We're going to do some flash talks. First one on Russian hacking gangs. Second one on economics of the cybercrime market. Third one on malicious motivations and future emerging threats. And finally, we're going to wrap up with an exciting new study on nationalism, the link between cyber terror and physical terror. So should be a lot of fun, eh? So the Honeynet project, a multidisciplinary approach. The Honeynet project has a lot of incredibly strong technical experts. You've seen some of them here today. They're some of the best you can find anywhere. So it's really fabulous. But there are actually other kinds of people here with technical backgrounds as well. Social scientists. My partner in crime, that's my joke, criminologist Tom Holt, and I'm a social psychologist by training. With a multidisciplinary approach, you can explore important questions like, what motivates malicious acts on the web? You know, it's not quite as simple as you might think. How different motivations trigger different kinds of malicious behavior. The role of social networks in exploit diffusion and identifying malicious actors and attribution. And also identifying future emerging threat scenarios. So those are the kind of things that we like to sort of deal with. And we think they're pretty interesting. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a quick little flash talk on Russian hacking gangs. I'm going to turn it over to Tom, who's going to do that, and I'm going to provide color. Yeah.
Max and I are going to tag team the talk, so we'll sort of bounce back and forth as we go along. And if you have any questions or anything at any point in time, please just feel free to ask away. So since we've seen a lot of technical talks today, our focus is going to be on understanding the humans behind the attack. And in thinking about human actors, we know that people talk to one another. They have social engagements online. They have social engagements offline. So some questions we can ask are, how are they relating to one another? If you think about the uber elite hacker who has the capacity to build 0 days, how are they communicating with other people? And what do other people think about them? If we might perceive of these individuals as kind of thought leaders, then where do they sit? What kind of place do they occupy relative to the less skilled individuals in the network? And most people have not examined this issue, due in fact to the fact that it's hard to find a really good hacker who's engaged in malicious activities who's actually going to say, this is what I do, this is how I do it. They don't want to get caught, they don't want to be detected, and so the less kind of physical presence they have, the less their risk of being caught. But in thinking about the online environment, we all love to talk about ourselves in different capacities. Facebook, raise your hand if you have Facebook. LiveJournal? Nobody? Twitter? Okay, Twitter. All right. So preferences for different kind of social media. Well, given that we talk about ourselves in these different environments, what we're going to do is walk you through some data that we acquired through LiveJournal as a means for communication between actors in different marketplaces and in different environments. So within the Russian and Eastern European community, we were able to find LiveJournal pages for individuals associated with or who belong directly to known malicious forums and different groups. And with an examination of an individual's blog, you can actually find some pretty practical things about each actor. You can get their location, or at least where they claim to reside, their education, you can get their biographical info, whatever they claim to present about themselves to the bigger world. And Max will probably add color as we go along, so we'll both be shouting things out. Plus, with LiveJournal, you can see everybody who is a friend, who they're connected to, how they associate with one another. So you can be a friend of someone, and that's a person whose blog that you read or whose LiveJournal account you read, and who you can access different parts of their account. Also friends, you can see who the individuals communicate with, who they read, but they might not have access to sensitive parts of the resources. So it's kind of a segmentation of friendship. And then mutual friends, where you both know one another and claim to know one another. And then finally, communities. So within LiveJournal, kind of like within Facebook, the groups that an individual belongs to. So to give you a visual representation of this, this is an individual's LiveJournal account. So you can see up at the top we have a name, Crash. Crash is a guy who wrote a very popular botnet in 2005 and 2006. It was being sold. Suicide DDoS. So Crash is the individual responsible for this. We get his location. He's in the Russian Federation. We have an email address, and when you look across multiple sites and multiple forums, you can connect the dots and see this same email address popping up in the same places. You can also see team associations, what websites he visits, who he communicates with. You can see he doesn't list any education, but he has lots of friends, and he has lots of interests. And on the interest side of things, this is where it's very relevant for us, because he mentions he's interested in cyber terrorism. He's interested in drugs, he's interested in exploits, rootkits, Ring Zero, security. So lots and lots of things that might be of curious focus for the different communities interested in hacking.
Yeah, quick question, is that
Sure.
translated? Because I see some Russian below.
Yes, they have actually both. So they have English interests and then they have the Russian interests also.
Plus, we have a professional native-speaking Russian doing a lot of translation. So,
Yeah, this project is actually a joint between Max, myself, and some associates at Eastern Carolina University and the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. So at Eastern Carolina, Dr. Olga Smirnova was able to go through and help us out with a lot of the coding. So in terms of gathering the data, we were able to grab LiveJournal profiles for different groups. The Bugger Hucker crew, this community that traded in zero-day exploits and information. The Cyber Underground Project, Damage Lab, the Hell Knights crew, which is a small number of individuals who are interested in and producing different types of tools and malware. Hackzona, or Hackzone, which is a Russian forum. Mazafaka, and if any of you are familiar with mazafaka.brew, this is a site where there's lots of malware being traded and other kinds of data. As well as RuHack, which is a general interest group within LiveJournal focusing on hacking. And then Zloy. And Zloy is another Russian forum where you can buy, sell, and trade different resources. So we have people from various different groups with ranges of individual members. So with Bugger Hucker Crew, we've got over 100 people. Same with Hackzona. And then Zloy with 75, and then it gets much smaller from there. So these are individuals who are involved with the groups who have profiles. And in looking just at country location, you can see the majority of them claim to reside in the Russian Federation or the Ukraine, and then from there it really drops down. Some individuals in Eastern Europe, and two people who claim to be in Jamaica, though we don't really know any validity to that. So you can see the distribution is somewhat representative of these communities. They're communicating in Cyrillic languages. We can make a general assertion that if they claim to be in the Russian Federation and talk about going to school, going to certain markets, we can validate what they're posting. But there's also a lot of missing information. You might not be able to see this in the back, but there's 64% of the individuals who didn't tell us anything at all about where they live. So this puts us in a little bit of a bind because we can't tell everyone, but there is a significant distribution.
well, if you spend enough effort, you can probably figure out where they come from by looking at text, by looking at references, and locations, and things. But it takes a lot of sort of individual effort to be able to do that. You have to be really interested in an individual to want to be able to track them to that effort.
And in looking, and speaking of which, in looking for these individuals online, taking each individual handle, email address, and an ICQ number, we started searching, doing open source queues through Google, trying to find as much as we could about each individual. And we assigned them a threat score. So based upon what we can find about each person, are they a high-level hacker, someone who's created malware and released it through a forum or sold it? Do they have their own website? Do they communicate about their activities? Second is a low-level hacker, someone who participates in multiple forums but seems to have no skill or development of malicious software and resources. So maybe they're regularly posting, but they seem to be kind of a middling or script kiddie type hacker. Computer security bloggers came in here as well, so people who are in the industry or at least who are interested in hacking and security but don't appear to have any malicious intention. And then zero, which is no risk. We couldn't find anything about this person anywhere.
Right, so no risk doesn't necessarily mean that they're not a risk at all, but just basically we don't have enough information to draw a conclusion.
So for the no-risk actor, this could be somebody who's really good at hiding themselves, or this could just be a non-existent individual who just is involved in LiveJournal and shares some of these friendship networks.